Hey, hi guys. Good afternoon. So let us wait for 2 more minutes so that other people can also join in the live, and then we can start with the thing which you all might know. So we are going to do something called Netflix UI clone today. Please let me know in the chat once whether you are able to see my screen properly or not. Guys, are you able to see my screen? Sure, Akash will share the GitHub repo as well. So, before we start, I just would like to introduce myself. So, this is Arvind. Some of you people might have known about me. So, I've been working as a front end developer at Blackbook, and I had also taught in many companies, especially the JavaScript area. And coming to I've done a couple of internships on the full stack web development. I'm very much into JavaScript and then TypeScript area, also in React. So that is pretty much about me, and I'm also graduated from NIT Warangal in EC branch. So yeah, I think we can. It's good to start now. So basically, today in this masterclass, what we are going to do is we are going to build the UI of the Netflix homepage. So let us start. I'll just show you the brief overview of it first. So when we just type Netflix, so we'll be kind of getting one homepage, which is this one, which has some, one good UI to get started with, which covers many things in the CSS part, especially I would say, and it looks very cool, and it is also something which is much consistent UI. You might have known Netflix is one big company, so where the developers has made this particular homepage very good. So we are going to today we are going to clone this almost exactly like how it is looking, and we will know the core features that are there in the CSS, and you don't need to worry about anything. So I would be kind of explaining about all the things that you needed for it. So just the patience and just the interest to learn is pretty much enough to get started with it. uh, you don't it would be little better if you had some idea on HTML CSS before, and even if you don't had, I'll kind of give the brief overview because we don't have much enough time. We have to build this, and parallelly I need to make you understand everything. So that is all. We can start. So basically, to write the code, I'll be using some software called VS Code. VS Code is just a software where we write the code. We can, usually we build the full stack applications in the VS Code. And if you're working in Java, we kind of use another editors like IntelliJ. So it's just an editor. So if you don't have that editor, right, we can just download it from the Google. So you can just search for it, VS Code, and you'll get the very first link, which is the code.visualstudiocode.com. And then from there you can actually go to this download section, and here you'll find the links for the respective OS. So currently I'm using Mac OS, and it has been already installed on my system, so I'm not going to install it. So it is just like you are going to download a Facebook app from the Play Store and then installing it. So nothing difficult, no, not difficult steps in installing VS Code. So you can just download and then install it. Very straightforward. So once you have downloaded, let me just open my terminal. So are you able to see this terminal, guys? Are you guys able to see this terminal? I just wanted to get the confirmation whether you're able to see other windows or not. Am I audible? Hello. Okay, fine. So now in this, I'll just navigate to my desktop. Inside that, I have another folder called personal, and then inside that, let me check the folders. So I've created one folder called Netflix clone. So let me just navigate into that. Netflix clone. And then inside this, if you see, there is nothing. So when I type the ls command, it lists out basically the list of files and then folders inside the current working directory or current working folder, which is this. So I've not created any files as of now. So I'll be just opening this particular folder in my VS Code. To do that, we can use a command called code space dot. So whenever we use this command, basically the current working directory, whichever is there, that will be loaded onto VS Code. Let me enter. Now you see VS Code is being loaded up with the folder that we are actually inside, right? So I will zoom in a little bit so that you guys will be able to see the font a little better, right? And in the VS Code, we can actually make, manage the entire file structure on the left side, which is we call as a project window. And we could create a file from here directly, or we could create a folder from here, right? And I'm just going to create one HTML file because before that, let me just give you some idea of what is web development. Those who are, here for the first time listening to web development stuff. So I'll just create one file where I'll kind of write some notes. Txt. So basically, what is web development is like whatever the web pages that you see every day, right? So those are being built with some tech stack, right? And the technologies, those who knows all the technologies to build an end-to-end website, those people we call as a full stack developer. A complete web page or a website will consist of two things. One is the front end development as well as the back end development. Let me just list them out. And then the second thing is back end. Now, in the front end, what happens is whatever the user interface, which means the buttons and the text and the styling, the colors, and whatever the things that you are able to see and then interact with. Let's say you would be creating a drop down, right? So you're clicking on it. So you are interacting with the drop down, right? So the interactions whichever you are making, and then the UI whichever you are seeing. So those are all comes under the front end part. Those are all comes under the front end part. Now coming to the backend. So backend is something which serves the data to a website. So basically, whenever you open Instagram app or your LinkedIn app or anything, what happens is the posts, whatever are there, the data, whichever is you are able to see every day, right? And that images or that videos or the text or the details of that users and everything will not be stored on your system. I mean, will not be stored on your phone or your laptop. Basically, they would be stored in the servers. So servers, you can imagine it's something like a big computer all put together, like a system of computers all put together at one place, maybe in Delhi or Mumbai, and then they will hold all the data related to their application. Let's say if you take a LinkedIn application, so they will keep all the data on their LinkedIn servers. Now, the app, whichever is there, which we able to see. So app is again kind of a front end part where we'll be able to see the colors and then the text, all other stuff. Like we will be able to interact with some buttons, scroll view, and everything, right? So whenever we interact, what happens is it kinds of loads the data from the servers basically to the respective servers. Let's say if we open Instagram app, it kind of loads the data from Instagram servers by checking who the user exactly and everything. Okay. And all the data and all other operations which are performed on the data will be done in the servers. And that is to do that performance. Like, let's say you are kind of searching for something, and we need to load that for that particular search, we need to load the results, right? So there should be a program that should run to search for it, for a targeted item that you are searching for. The search algorithm, or the implementation of that thing, should be written in some language, maybe in Java or C++ or in Node.js or in some other languages. So that is what the backend technology which drives the data to the front end applications basically. Now coming to front end, so especially in the web front end, which means making websites, right? So you need to know three technologies at the very basic level. So without those three, you can't move forward in learning front-end technologies. So the very basic three things are HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript. So there is no other language which can replace this JavaScript for the front-end web application building. Okay, so someone might have an assumption that can't we use some other language as a front-end language? Means no, we can't use. When you are making a web application, you have to use JavaScript only as a functional language. Now coming to HTML, what it does is HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. What it does is it used to create the skeleton of the web page. Skeleton, I mean by whatever the item elements are there. Let's say if you see any website, right? If you see on this website, you look at this text is visible to us. To have this text, we need to have one HTML element which could actually show that message up. And then here you see there is something called email is there, where actually we can type something. And this is an input box. To generate such an input box, again, we need one HTML element which can show that up. And then here again, one more button is there. To show that button to the user, we need to have another HTML element, which is actually the button element. And not only those things, many things like image is there. To attach image, we need one element. And to attach a video, here you see there is a video playing. Again, we need another element. And to attach this paragraph, again, we need another HTML element. So basically, HTML is kind of used to put the content onto the web page. So how do we put the content? By using some specific tags. So if you wanted to insert an image onto the web page, you have to use something called image tag, just like that. Now coming to CSS. So CSS, so whenever you come across HTML, right, you should understand that it makes the skeleton of the web page. This makes the skeleton of the web page. And then coming to CSS, CSS is just used to style and then have some animations in the front end. I mean, on the web page, you might have seen many animations, right? So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. What it does is it's going to give the styling for the elements or the skeleton that we have added. For example, if you look at on this web page, right? So how do we get this color of background to be something red shaded? So it is because we added by using CSS. And then you see this text seems little larger, whereas this text seems to be little smaller. How are we adjusting the font? So that is again done by CSS only. Okay. And then coming to JavaScript. JavaScript is something, what it does is it takes the user interactions and then it does something based on the user interactions. Let's say you wanted to log in to a web page. You enter your email ID, you enter your password, and then you click on one button, right? So your data, whatever you are entered, it should get validated. To validate it, you have to send that particular data to the backend, and the backend will search if the credentials are there in their database or not. Database is something where they store all the data in a single place, and then backend will respond whether the user is there or not. And once the backend responds, the front end JavaScript, whichever is there, that will just listen to it, and then it just updates the UI. For example, um, on this, I think I don't have any such use cases, but maybe in this drop down, also I don't have. Yeah, but majorly you would have observed it in many websites, right? Like when you log into AccioJob portal itself, you would find the phone number, and then you will get one OTP. So all the checks can be made with JavaScript only. So basically, JavaScript eventually gives the life for the website. So basically, the whatever the static website you have built, right, by using just HTML and CSS, by adding JavaScript, you can add the functionality to your web page. So that is what JavaScript does, and I'm not going to get into the details of backend because it would take much time, but we can directly start with this. Now, for writing any program, you have to have a program file. So if you wanted to write a Java program, you have to have a file called .java file, which means it should have an extension of .java. Similarly, to write HTML code, we should have .html extension, and to write CSS code, we should have .css extension. Now here I've just created one HTML file and then one CSS file. And to execute a HTML file, which is a web page basically, so we'll write some code inside this HTML file and then we run with a browser, because browsers are the softwares which can understand web pages. I mean, which can understand HTML, and that shows up the web page to the users. Now I'm using something called live server. So if you don't have that in the VS Code, go to the extensions, just search for live server. So you'll be able to get this one by Ritwik Day, and then you can just install it. I'll tell you the usage of it. With live server, we don't need to actually refresh as soon as we update some code, so it will automatically listen to the changes that you are making in your HTML file, and then it just updates the web page also. Let me just open with live server. So once you have installed the live server, right, you will be able to see the as soon as you right click on it, you will be able to see something called open with live server basically. Okay, now you see I have loaded the web page. So this is basically a web page, right? You see it has some title over here, like how other Netflix web page has a title. Similarly, I also have a title, and then this is the index.html that has been targeted. As of now, it is completely blank. I don't have anything over here, right? But let us try to build the Netflix UI clone, homepage UI clone within this particular HTML file. Now here what I'm going to do is, for writing the HTML code, the very first thing you need is you need the boilerplate. Boilerplate is means the minimum requirement to run your HTML file. So if I just use the shortcut exclamation in VS Code, you see emit means basically clicking on the enter tab or tab button basically. Now as soon as you click on enter, you will get this kind of code over here. So let me just click enter. Now you see we got this code, and this is something we call as a boilerplate code. It is a minimum requirement to run the HTML in the browsers. Someone might ask me that even if I add a direct h1 tag, it works. But don't do that, because in the latest version, which is the HTML5 version, we have to attach all this boilerplate code. Now in this, let's just have a brief discussion about what this is. So basically HTML is all about tags. So there are some around 140 to 150 tags are there. So tag names are something which are reserved keywords. And in HTML, what you need to know is you need to know all those, not all those 140. Maybe it's enough if you know 50 tags. 50 are enough, because everything we use, we make real time, right? We use only 50 out of 150. We are not going to use the remaining 100. Now, if you look at this head, right, this is a tag name basically, right? So this is tag name. Tag name means what? It is the reserved keyword in that particular language. I mean, in that HTML language. So here HTML is again another keyword, and then meta is again another keyword. You can assume it to be a tag name also, and title is again another keyword, and so on. So there are like 150 are there, and out of 150, it is enough if you know the 50 most used tags. Now coming to the head section. So head section is something, firstly let me talk about tag. A tag is something which is where tag name is kept inside angular braces. Angular braces means the less than and then greater than symbol. Don't call these as less than and then greater than symbol in the HTML, because we have to call them as opening angular brace and then closing angular brace. So whenever you have a tag name inside angular braces, right, this thing we call as a tag, right? Now if you look at this in our boilerplate only, this is a tag, and this is also a tag. And if you look at this is also a tag. But if you look at the difference between line number 8 tag and then line number 3 tag, you see there is a additional forward slash is there in front of the tag name. So that is the reason where we have made another distinction called this one, whichever does not have the forward slash in the beginning, we call it as the opening tag. Okay, and this one, whichever has the slash at the front, we call that as the closing tag. So for almost all the tags in HTML, we do have opening as well as closing tag. There are few tags which does not have opening and then closing. Those things we call as the self-closing tags. How would we getting image resources? So I'll show you when I start with the development of that UI, right? I'll show you how would I get that. Now, similarly for body also, we have opening closing tag, and it's pretty much enough discussion about it. Now, if we change the title over here to something else, now if I go here, let me keep this side by side. Uh, for the first time, I just need to enter. Now you see the title is got changed. So basically you can have whatever the title you wanted over here. And now coming to the actual thing. So let's say if I write something inside this body is opening and then body is closing, you'll be able to see that thing over the web page. Now it is a web page, but it is running on my system. You can't able to see this web page. Now coming to the Netflix clone. So basically, whenever you are building the UI, right, you need to divide things first. Because firstly, the flow should be something like, you have to make the skeleton. So this is the flow that it is a best practice to start with. Whenever you are making a UI, firstly figure out the reusable components. I mean reusable elements. When you are working with a big project, right? Figure out reusable. This is the first thing that we are going to do. And then the second thing is divide the UI into fragments. Divide into fragments, or kind of components. So I'll just say it as a fragments only. Basically, we are going to divide the UI into pieces. And then the last thing is we will style it. We will build the skeleton, I mean by using HTML. And after building the skeleton, we are going to style it by attaching CSS to those elements. Okay. So this is the flow I'm going to do now. Let us just have a walkthrough around the web page that we are actually going to build, which is the Netflix homepage. So if you look at it, there is a big background image is there, and then on top of that background image, we have something like a navigation bar where we have the logo of the Netflix, and on the right side we have one drop down, and then we also have something which is this, the sign in button. And we are not going to attach any functionality. We don't need to bother about what happens after clicking on sign in basically. Now coming to, there is something is there at the center of this particular image. So in that we have one title and then some other input and then one button. And if you scroll down, there is a video playing on top of this particular frame. You're able to see the frame, right, which is looking like a TV, and then on top of that TV there is a remote also, right? So we will see how that remote and everything would be adjusted. So it looks very straightforward, but we will see the difficulty in making them now in this. So we have some text and then one video which is playing on the right side, and then if I come down, there is another image, and then on top of this image there is something which is shown over here, some message, and then this downloading animation. And then we have some other text, and if we scroll down again, we have the same kind of thing. So this is what I want you guys to figure out, right? So here we have the same functionality. If you see, so there was a frame, and inside that frame the video was playing. So here also, if you look at this, there is a frame, and inside that frame the video is actually playing, right? And then on the left we have some text again, and one more image. It's a plain image, we can just download and insert. And then coming down, so here is something called, we call this as accordions, and you see there are some accordions. And don't worry, I'm not going to implement this particular click event over here. So when I click on it, I'm going to open this up, but I'll make one of these cards. And you see, whenever I move my cursor onto this particular accordion item, you see the background color is kind of getting changed, and that is also we are going to implement. Now if you look at it carefully, this input and then this get started button, have you seen it anywhere in this web page before this? And this is where we kind of reuse and then write some efficient code for making it. Now this input and then this button, have you seen it anywhere in the web page? I'm seeing all your chats. You could directly comment on the YouTube live, so that I'll be able to get some acknowledgement from you guys. Hi Balaji, nice to see you here. Okay, so yeah. Now this input and then this particular get started button is exactly there at the top of the screen, which is this, right? The same design and everything is same, right? So we can kind of reuse the style that we attached for this particular element at the top again to at the bottom, which is this one. And then one last thing, we have the kind of footer wherein we have some links. And if you look at this particular drop down, which is the language selector drop down, now can you tell me, have you figured this out anywhere on the screen again? This particular drop down, have you figured it out anywhere? Yes, if you see at the scroll at the topmost, we have the same thing at the topmost as well, right? So whatever the styling that we are attaching over here, we can just reuse it. So, and one more thing is, if you look at this particular button and this particular button, right? These two buttons actually have the same styling where the text color is white and then the background color is something red shaded, right? So this button and this button both are same. So we can just kind of use the same styling for it. And it is a very good practice that whenever you're making a website, right, you have to write it in a very optimized way, which means you should not duplicate the code. Try avoiding the code. Do not repeat the code again and again. So if you have at one place, try to reuse that code at another place also. Now, I have something to say here to build this particular header, because one complicated thing in this website is to build this header exactly like this, for which you need to know little more things. I'll just tell you how I'm gonna make this. So firstly, to make this particular header, right? I don't have any pen actually here. Yeah, it's fine. So to make this header, firstly, we are going to have a header element, and for which we are going to attach this as a background image. Now to get this background image, what I do is I'll just inspect it. And then after inspecting, so if you see here is an image. Now you see when I hover on this link, I'm able to get it. Let me just click on it. Now this is the actual image. I'm going to just download this image onto my folder. So into desktop and then personal and then Netflix clone. So I'm going to download it as background, right? So I've downloaded this image and I will also download all other ingredients. So like if you see, there is an image over here. Let me just open this image in new tab. And this image, which is just an image, a frame, as I told you, I'm just going to download this frame. So I'll just name it as frame 1. And I'm making sure that it is also downloaded in the Netflix clone folder. And then coming to here, if I scroll down further more, here I have another image. Let me save this and I'll name it as frame 2. Then coming down further, so here again I have another image. I'll also show you how to extract the videos also. So this is going to be the frame 3 basically. And if I come down further, so here I have another image, which is the frame 4. Sorry, control is, and then I'm going to save it as frame 4. Now 4 pictures we have downloaded, which are required for us in the website. I don't think there are many other images we need to download. Now coming to this videos, right here the videos are clearly playing. So let us extract the videos also. For that I'm going to just inspect it, and then after below down this image, right, I have a div, and then inside the div I have this video tag. So whenever we figure out a video tag, it means that there is a video, and you see in the source src they have attached the link. Now what I'm going to do is I'll just copy this particular URL and I'm going to open it in a new tab. Now you see this is the video that we need to play. So let me just save it with the name of video 1. And then similarly, I'm going to capture the second video also, which is this one. So let me inspect this element, and again down below I have video tag, and then I can extract this link also again over here. Now you see I have another video, so let me just make it to video 2. Yeah, that is pretty much in downloading the ingredients that we needed. So we have downloaded all the ingredients now. Now what things are left is, the things are left to write the code, nothing more. So coming to, I'm going to close this. I'm also going to keep these 2 files because we are going to work with respect to these 2 files always. Now, firstly, I'll just make a header section. So header section is something which we usually attach for the top. So in the header section for this, I'll just give a class name of top header. So why do we give class names? Is because we need to select these elements in the CSS files. So to select in CSS files, firstly, we need to tell which CSS I'm going to use. So basically, I'm going to use this particular index.css file. I just need to link it in my web page by using the link tag. So in the link tag, I need to give the path of the file, which is index.css. Now, if I command and click, now I'll be navigating to this particular file. Now I have attached the CSS file into my HTML. And now what things left are, we have given one class name. Now what we can do is we can just select the class name by using a dot notation. So whenever you are selecting a class name, right, you have to use a dot. There are many other selectors also. So I'm gonna just give top header, and for this I'll just give a border of maybe 2 pixel thickness border, which is solid styled, and then red colored border, just to check whether it is working or not. And if I head back, now you see you're able to see the border for it. Now why we got this entire screen width is because the you know header element is a block level element. It occupies the entire width of the container in which it is there. So it is there inside the body, so it is going to occupy the entire width because it's a block level element. Element by expecting, because it's a good practice to know about the behavior of all the HTML elements always. Now when I just clicked on this body, right, so for every HTML element, technically a kind of a rectangular box which has many layers in it. One is the content area, which is at the center most, and around the content area we'll get something called padding. We can customize that padding, and around that we get the border, and around that we get the margin is something which is a free space around it. Now for body, if you see, by default we have a margin called 8 pixels. We are just going to remove it. Not only for body, for all the elements I wanted to remove. So to select all the elements that I place, we can use a selector called asterisk, which means it is going to select all the elements in the document. Now for all the elements, I wanted to remove the default margin. So I'm making margin to be 0. And I wanted to remove the default padding. So I'm making padding to be 0. And yeah, that's all. So only margin and padding, I just wanted to customize myself. So initially, if there are any default margins or paddings for all the elements, I'm just making them to be 0. Now if I get back, now this time you see the header element is got stick to the top, because now the body does not have any margin, you can see. Okay. Now coming to in the header, we are going to attach a background image. For that we have to use background image property, in which we'll use the CSS function called URL. And in the URL, we just need to specify the file, which is the background JPG, right? And if I head back to here, top header, the class name is top header. Yeah, we are unable to see the image, right? So the reason why we are unable to see the image is because by default, whenever we have one HTML element, if it is a block level, it will occupy the 100% width. If it is an inline, it will occupy the width based on the content that it has. Okay. Now, what about the height? So height for every element will be decided based on the content that it has. So here we need to define or decide the height. So for this, we don't have any content in it. So that is the reason why we are unable to see the element. But when we specify some height for it, right? So let's say I'll just specify a height of 200 pixels. Now we'll get the background image for the height of 200 pixels only. Okay. So let me just make it to full screen. But here, if you see in the Netflix official site, we have it something like almost 80% of the screen height is occupied by the background image only, basically the header section only. So let's just make it. So how we can give the height relative to the browser dimensions, which are browser height and then browser width, by using viewport dimensions, basically VH and then VW. So if I say something like 80 VH, which stands for 80% of the viewport height. Viewport height is something which we are able to see the height basically from top to the bottommost. Now 80 VH stands for 80% of the entire viewport height. Let me just go back to here and then save this. Now you see the image is occupied for a height of 80 VH. So as it is there in the website. Now we have given one kind of header background image, and inside this, now let us try to divide it into two sections. One is the nav section, which is at the top, and the other one is the centered section. Okay. So we should make something like two sections, and those two sections I'm going to make inside another block or another div. I'll tell you why, because if you look at this image and then this image, there is a huge difference, right? On top of this image, if you see clearly, on top of this image, If you see clearly, there is some kind of gray color is there, right? And that is why we are able to see this text very clearly. So that is the reason I'm going to keep another element on top of this image. So let me just have another element, which is div with a class of container, and then inside this I'm going to have a nav with a class of navbar, just like this. And I'm going to have another block with something like content. So basically what I did is, inside the header, which means this one, for whom the background image is this thing, uh, should we use multiple div? Yeah, of course we can use multiple divs. Any website you see, there are many divs which we can use. So whenever there is a use case of making something inside another thing, right, we usually often go with the div only. And these semantic tags we use just because to make some code readability, like this header and the nav. Why we use this? To make the code to be readable. Now I just have one container inside the top header, and let me just target this container over here. Container, and for this container I'm going to give a border first, 2 pixel solid red. Now if I come back to here, now you can see red color border you are unable to see, right? Let me just make it to blue. Now you see there is a blue color border which is there at the top only, because the container now has zero width, right? So let us try to make it to be 100% width and then 100% height. Since it is a block level, it will directly have the 100% width of the header. Now let's just make height to be also 100%, so that it would also get the same 80 VH. Let me just get back. Now you can see the border is being there, for a height of 80 VH basically. Okay, I can remove this border now. Now I have the container, right? And inside the container there is a nav, right? And one more thing is, first we need to have this particular container on top of the image. Of course we are going to have it on top of the image only. So firstly, let us just have the gray shadow. I'll just do something like background color. I'll apply background color, which is red. And if I head back to here, now you see the background color of the div, we got the head, and then the background image which is there, it has been completely hidden, right? Now here it is not the scenario. You see the background image is partially visible, right? So we should not make the background color to be red. Let me just make it to black. And if we head back again, we'll see the dark thing just like this. Now what we need to do is, we need to make it little transparent so that we can see the background image. To attach a color, to make transparency in the colors, right? We can use something like RGBA notations, which stands for red, green, blue, and then A stands for alpha value, which will decide the amount of opacity. So for black, it is just 000, so it would be just a black. You see it is just dark as it is. Now the fourth parameter using which I can adjust the opacity, basically, I mean the transparency, amount of transparency. So the transparency ranges from 0 to 1. When it is 0, it means completely transparent. When it is 1, means not at all transparent. So let me just head back to here. Now you see we have some huge, almost huge amount of transparency, right? So I'll just make it to little something like 4. You see we have got the same kind of gray shadow almost. I'll just make it a little more 5, so that we'll get something more better. Right now you see we got the good amount of gray kind of shadow on top of the background image. Now what things left are is, we just need to build this particular navbar. Now to build this navbar, let us figure out what things are there in this. So in navbar we have a logo on the left side, which is Netflix, and then we have something like 2 buttons on the right side. So to have this logo, we can just inspect it. It is actually an SVG icon. So you can just, click on this SVG element and then click on these 3 dots, and you will have an option called copy. So just go to here and then copy the element. So I'm going to copy this SVG, and let me get back to here. I'll paste it. Don't need to bother about what these values all are. Okay, it has been designed by some other people. We don't need to bother. It's just a kind of an image. Now if I head back to here, and now you see we are able to see the Netflix in a big, in a big font, right? So for this, to have it a small font, what we can do is we can attach a width property, maybe something like 100, so that it will occupy only 100 pixels of the area. We are unable to see it, so we need to have the color to be something like, by using a fill property for this SVG, what we can do is we can attach the color for it. So let me just attach the color. And by the way, I wanted to tell you about one extension which is very handy for me while developing websites, which is the color picker. So let's say you are replicating one design, right? You have to extract the color. If you have Figma design, then you could extract it directly from there. But what if you wanted to get some colors in a web page? So that is where we can use this extension, which is the color picker eyedropper extension, which is a Chrome extension. You can just head to it and then download it. Color picker Chrome extension, and you will get the color picker, this one. Yeah, this one exactly. You can just add it to Chrome so that it will be helping us to extract any color. The thing is, we just need to click on it, and then after clicking, we just need to move whichever the color we wanted to extract. Now you see, I wanted to extract this particular color of this eye. So let me just click on it. Now I'll just get the color, which is the hexa code, and I can just give that hex code over here. Now my particular Netflix icon will be in that same color, right? So we have made it into some dimensions and then we just attach some color for it. Yeah, it moved to the top left. We will adjust it. No need to worry about it. Okay, I will adjust it. And now we have attached the basically this element. Now what about these two? So this element we could attach by using something called select HTML element, which is the HTML element where we can make something like a drop down. If you want to make custom drop downs, we can also make custom drop down also, but here it is a pretty straightforward select element. So what I'm going to do is after this SVG immediately, I'm just going to attach select tag, and we are not bothered about this ID and then name because we are not going to submit this form or something. So inside the select, I'll just have two options. So I'll just multiply it with 2 so that I'll get two options. And then I don't even have want these values. I just want the UI. And in the UI, if you see, we have something like English and then Hindi. So I'll have both of them in English letters only. So something like English and then Hindi, just like this. Right? Now you see, we have got the drop down, which is the language picker over here. I know that it is not as per the design. We will make it. Now, also one more thing, if you see clearly, in front of this particular English and after this English, right, we have some icon over here, right? We have some icon, right? And this icons, the drop down icon and then this particular, the globe icon we need to extract. So to get icons, there are many libraries using which we can extract the icons because we can't spend much time in building icons and writing a lot of CSS code for it. So we have some libraries where they have developed the CSS code to show a particular icon. So for now, I'm just going to use Google icons, which is very good thing to, handy for me. So I'll just search for Google icons. You can head to the second link, developers.google.com. And from here, just search for link. Now you see, you will get this link tag. So link tag is basically used to attach the style sheets, because if you see the relationship is style sheet, so we are eventually attaching another CSS file, which is a remote CSS file, which means the CSS file is not there in my computer, but it is there somewhere on the servers. Now I'm just going to use this particular link tag in my head tag so that I can start using the icons. So I've just pasted it. That's it. And after pasting it, if you scroll to the topmost, there is a clickable image where we can actually search for any icon. Okay, now here actually we can search for any icon. So something like down icon I wanted to search for. Now you see we have got this icon, and that's what we need to keep just over here, right? So this is one icon that we need to keep. uh, so let's get the name of it, how to use it. So if you click on it and then on the right side you will be able to see the usage of it. So you just need to add a span element. It also works with any other HTML element, but they suggest to add a span element, and you just need to copy this name. The name is important. Oh, so this name, which is arrow drop down. Okay, let me copy the entire HTML element. Now in the select tag, inside the select tag, what I will be doing is I'll just copy this, okay, and then paste it. Just make sure that the class name is not the one which we have copied. Just make sure the class name is simply material icons. Okay, just use this class name only for every icon. You will get this. Okay, now this is the drop icon. So this is one icon, and then let's have another icon, which is the globe. Let me search for globe. Yeah, we got something like language. So the name of it is language. So let's have that also. So span, and for the span, I'm going to give a class name to be material icons. Now, whenever I give this class name and then write the proper text inside, the library, whichever we have linked, right, it will take care of showing it as an icon. Okay. So we just need to have language over here. Now, if I head back to here, we are unable to see any icons because we have added it as a children's, right? Now let's make it visible to everywhere. So I'll have something like a class for it, language picker. Okay. And for this, let's target it over here, language picker. And inside the language picker, what I'm going to do is I'll just do some basic styling. So if you look at this, this is not looks like that good, right? So what we can do is uh, we can change the background color or color of it first. So let me just get the color of it. So you see this is the background color, and it is again a kind of dark one, which is with little transparency, right? Because from this color also we are able to see something which is behind. So let's have the black one only. So background color to be RGBA, and with all the values to be 00, and I'm going to give the transparency to be little more, I mean little less, sorry, maybe zero point 0.7, so that it will be little dark. Now you see we have it in the little dark. And one more thing I wanted to do is for all the elements, because it's a completely dark screen, right? Almost all the text are in a white color. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is for the root tag itself, I'm going to specify the color to be white so that all the elements will inherit that color and then apply. So here it is not applied for it. Okay, let us specifically help specify for this particular select. But usually what happens is almost all other elements will just inherit this color because nowhere we are editing it. Now for this language picker, let me just have the color to be something like white. And if I head back to here, now you see the English you are able to see in the white color. And then we just also need to have some padding. So let me have a padding of vertical padding of maybe 5 pixels, and then horizontal padding maybe of 15 pixels I would like to give. Now we'll be able to see something good looking one. And this drop down, we are getting by default language or a drop down. So this is because of this. And then let me just try to remove this, because the drop down is something which we are directly getting it. So what we can do is I can keep this icon as it is. I'll just add the language icon just on top of it. So for doing it, I'll just comment this drop down over here. Now for this language, what I can specifically do is I'll specify the icon to be language. I'll give a separate class because we might be having another classes with the same class name. So that is the reason I'm giving a separate class. Now what I could do is for this language, uh, so basically my idea is to have that icon just in front of this particular select. So to have it, firstly we'll use something called a position attribute, using which it takes actually multiple values. Let me just make it to absolute. Whenever I make it to absolute, basically I can align this particular item with respect to its first non-static parent. Non-static parent means the parent which does not have the position attribute value to be static. So let me just have a top to be 0, and then the color of this icon also to be white. And if I head back to here, we should be able to see somewhere. Let me increase the size of this icon by giving the font size to be something like 40 pixels, and then I'll just make it to important. Important I need to add because in the library they have specified it as important. So to have more priority, we just need to attach this important tag. Still it is not visible. So what we could do here is for this input, we are unable to attach. If you wanted to display, let me just select this. Sorry, not here. So whenever I select it, I'm able to see this. Okay. So what I could do is directly inside this English itself, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have this icons, these two icons. because in the options only we are able to see that stuff. So what I will do is, in the options itself, I'm going to have a language icon, and then I'm going to have the text something like this, which is English. Okay. And I'm not adding for Hindi. We can also add it for Hindi also, but for now I'm just adding for English so that we'll be able to see for English language especially. Now for this English element, for this option, basically we have three elements inside. And if I head back to here, now you'll be able to see the icons actually. One second, the icons should be visible. I'll just have this icon outside just to verify whether the icons are properly loaded or not. The icons are properly loaded. So it is something like it is not loaded inside the option. So what we could do is, yeah, I'll just go get back. I'll have English as it is. Now what I'll do is I'll just keep this particular select inside another div, because eventually my idea is to keep the icons. And then before this icon, what I'll do is I'll just have something like the icons which I copied. So span the material icons, and inside this I'm going to have the language icon, and at the last I'm going to have another thing which is span with a class of material icons again. Now this is going to be arrow down. Actually, I'm not even able to see the icons. What would be the issue? Yeah, here is the issue, typo mistake. So language and then material icons, arrow down. Maybe this is wrong. I'll just get the down icon once again. So it is not arrow down, arrow drop down it is. So arrow drop down. And if I head back to here, now you see we have got this particular arrow drop down and then this one also. Now what we could do is, we try to adjust this particular icons within this container only. So let me just target this particular one, something like this class with a name of something like drop down container. So I'll just target it, drop down container. And then for this, I'm just gonna give a border of 2 pixels solid red so that you'll be able to see the item. So it's a block level, so it is occupying the entire width. Now what we can do is, let's style the nav bar and then we'll come back to it, because the nav bar is something which is needs to be kept inside a flex, because one item is on the leftmost. So flex is basically a layout model using which we can actually position, I mean, align all of its children's in a proper way. I mean, there are some set of CSS properties which we can use to make them align. So this entire thing, like this Netflix icon and then the right side two buttons together, what I'm going to do is I'll keep these three things inside another container. So I have already kept, but I just need to style it. So this is the SVG. And then what I'm going to do is, this is another one. So this div. So I'll just have something like, this is for drop down, and I'll have a button also, which is the sign in button. Sign in. Now this button and then this particular input drop down container, I just need to keep it inside some other div. And for this, I'm going to give a class name to be something like right half. So right half is something which includes this drop down as well as this button together. Now inside this, I'm going to paste these two things. One is the drop down container and the other one is the actual button. Now eventually we have three elements in the navbar. One is the SVG, another one is this right half. Sorry, yeah, only two elements. Another one is the right half. Now let me just head back to here and then target the nav bar as, and for this I'm going to give a border so that you can see this solid blue. And if I head back to here, let me remove this one. Now you see the blue color bordered one, which is containing the Netflix icon and then the drop downs, the two buttons basically. Now what I can do is I can give a padding for it in all the four directions, maybe 100 pixels of padding. Now you see Netflix icon, this entire thing has a padding of 100 pixels all around. So it's better to give vertical padding little less, 50 pixels, and horizontal to be 100 pixels. Now it would be as we expected in the same position. Maybe it needs to be reduced further also. So I'll just make the vertical padding to be 20 pixels so that it will come almost to the top. And then one more thing is I need to increase the dimensions of this SVG a little more. So I'll just make it to 200, which would look little bigger one. I'll make it to 150. I think 150 is fine. Now this particular navbar container, I just need to make its display value to be flex so that I can align its children's as needed. Now I will also meanwhile target the right half, which is the container containing the drop down and then the button, for which I'm going to give a border of 2 pixels solid red. Why I'm giving borders is just to, you guys need to figure it out. So that is the reason why I'm giving borders. So the blue color bordered one is something which contains the SVG along with the right half. Now this Netflix icon logo and then the right side box, these two are actually two children's of the blue container. Now as soon as I make it to display flex, right, those two things has actually come in a row because the flex direction property default value is row. Now I can just make something like justify content property and then make its this value to be space between, so that the two of its children's will come, one on the leftmost and the other one will come on the rightmost basically. So there are many values, space evenly, and then center, flex start, flex end. The default value for this property is flex start, which keeps the items at the start, and flex end will move the items to the rightmost. Center will put the items together at the center, and then space between will give the equal space between the items. Now if I save, now you see the entire item, which is the red color item, right half item, is moved to the rightmost and the Netflix icon is kept at the leftmost. Now I will also show you what happens if I give some other value so that you would get some idea. Space evenly if I give, right, on the left side and then on the right side, and on the right side of this particular red box, we'll get it basically equal uh, you know equal space. So that is what space between. And if I make it something like center, right, so these two items will come at the center. If I make it to flex end, these will move to the rightmost. By default it was flex start, so that is where they will be on the leftmost. Now here, as per the requirement, we wanted it to be a space between, so that we can have one item at the leftmost and the other item at the rightmost. Now we have made this container, I'm going to just remove this particular border because we are done with its task. Now let's target on this particular right half. So for this right half again, we have two elements. One is the button and then another one is the div. So again, I'm going to make it to be a flex again because I wanted those two items to put together. So for that, I'll just give something like display flex. Now you see they'll come in a single row. And then now this time what I will do is I'll target the drop down container also, because I wanted to show you where the drop down container is there. 2 pixel solid blue I'll give for it. Now you see the drop down container is something which contains the icon, language icon, and then the drop down, and then another drop down icon, and then there is a button which is the sign in button. So if you look at this carefully, we have some spacing between these two, right? So to attach such a spacing, we can actually use something called a gap property for the flex container. So this is the flex container, the right half, which is bordered with red color, right? So for this, we can just give a property called gap. So maybe 40 pixels of gap. Now you see we got some gap between this particular blue color item and then the sign in button, right? And now what we can do is, now let's get back to the drop down container to style. So if you look at in the layout, right, drop down container as a div, and in which we have three elements. One is the icon, and another one is the list select options, and then the last one is the another icon basically. So I wanted to position this particular language icon as well as this drop down icon with respect to this particular drop down icon, drop down container. So to do that, let me have some separate classes for these two icons. For the language, I'll have a class called language, and for the drop down, I'll have the drop down class. Okay, so two separate classes I have given just to target them individually. Now coming to here, I'll target language. I'll give a border for it, or let me just keep it as it is. I'll give the borders later. and then I will also target drop down class. And then for this, meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, right, I'm actually looking at the chat. You can ask your questions up. I'll be, resolving it. What to do if live server extension not updating the page? No, it will update. It would definitely update. If it does not update, right, make sure you restart the VS Code. You can just use Control Shift and P, and you will get an option called Reload window. When you click on it, basically, the window VS Code window will just get reloaded. Try with that; it will work. Now coming to here, so we have these two icons. So a drop down container. I haven't made any changes, but how it has got this one? Did I added any style for it? Achha, I think here this things I just need to remove, right? Language picker is something I just need to remove again. So drop down container. Yeah, for the drop down container, we could keep the border, but not now. We will add it little later. So this icon is coming on the top of it, even though I have not made it position absolute somewhere. Okay, let me just attach this, the drop down container width to be something like this. Width to be maybe 250 pixels for the entire drop down container. And then I will give a border for it. Now you'll be able to see the red color border, which is a drop down container, but I supposed to add it for the drop down container. Did I add it for the anywhere? Yeah, this thing. So these were overlapping. It is got disconnected because I have reloaded the window. That is why it was not updated. Let me just reopen. Now we got the original styling. I was confused why it is not getting updated and why the logo icon is on top of it. But yeah, so because of reloading VS Code, the live server got lost the connection. So that is why we need to restart it again. Now you see we got this particular border drop down container. So we have given much width. So what I can do now is, let me remove this width. And for the select option, I'll just give a padding. I think I've already given, right? The padding for it. For the select option, language picker is the class. Let me just select it. And for this language picker, I'll just give a padding of padding top maybe 10 pixels and then padding horizontal maybe 40 pixels or 30 pixels I go with. Now you see we got some huge padding around it, and then we just need to have a background color for it to be RGBA, something like 00 this entire value, and I'll just make it to 0.7, little lesser transparency, and then the color of it to be white. You'll be able to see this particular thing. And now we just need to position this particular icon and then this particular icons on the right side. So what we can do is for the language as well as for the drop down, I'll target them together because there is some common styling. I'll just make its position to be absolute so that they will just float on the document now. And I can start adjusting these two items over here with respect to the red color item. So I can give something like top to be maybe something like the padding, which is 10 pixels. Top to be 10 pixels, so it has to come down with respect to the container. But it is not something related to the its parent, because whenever we make an absolute, right, uh, it will be basically aligned with respect to its non-static parent. But who is the non-static parent? Let's see. So for this icon, the non-static parent is, I think, not even the right half, but the entire nav bar. So we kind of need to position it with respect to the drop down container. So let us make the drop down container to be non-static. So for that, I'm going to make its position to be, so by default the position is static, we just need to make it to something non-static. So I would go with relative so that it does not get disturbed. Now you see I can align this to particular icons with respect to this red color container. So instead of having 10, I'll just give it something like 5. And similarly, same thing I'm going to apply for the drop down also. So for the drop down, I'll just give a right of maybe 0, and then a top is already I applied for both of them together. So for this, when I apply right of something, right, 0, it worked. And then let me apply a top of little more, maybe something like 8 pixels, so that it just overlaps on the on top of the existing one. And then right one, maybe I'll give -1 pixel so that it move little right. Now you see we are able to see the drop down very clearly, right? Now what we can do is we can just remove this border. I'll make it little more styling for it. Now we have the default border. Let's just remove the default border for the select. So for the select, which is the drop down picker, sorry, the long language picker. So the default border, I'm just making it to none. And then if I save, so I've removed the default border. And now what I can do is I can just give some border radius to make the corners to be rated curvature. So border radius, maybe something like 5 pixels. So it will be in a little curved manner, right? And then the language icon, I just wanted to move it little more right. So for that, what I can do is the language especially, so left offset, which basically aligns with respect to the left line of this particular container. So the language icon, I wanted to move it right, so its parent left line is there. With respect to that left line, I need to give some bit so that it moves to the right. So let me just give something like 4 pixels for it. Now you see the language icon move towards left, towards right little bit. And then this one, the default drop down is there. On top of it, I'm trying to overwrite. So for this one, instead of giving it top of 8 to be, I'll give top of 6 so that it almost overflows on it. And then for the right, I'll just give it to be something like 0 or some other negative value so that it moves little right. Now you see it has been properly aligned. And coming to the sign in button, so for sign in button, so for every button I'm going to give just a class name called btn, because all the buttons are common here, so we could just apply the same styling. So I'll target the btn somewhere over here, and then its background color is going to be something like the red color. I'll just get it from my color picker. So this is the color that I need to attach. So background color to be this red color, and then the padding, I wanted to give little horizontal padding, maybe 10 pixels of horizontal, but vertical padding I don't want. So padding 10 pixels horizontal. And if I head back to it, now you see I'm able to see the button. Now I just need to remove the default border. So border, I just make it to none. And after making border to be none, the borders will be removed now. And then the text color needs to be white, and then border radius need to be applied, so which may be something like 5 pixels. And if I head back, now we'll be able to see that button, right? And now one more last thing that I wanted to do with the nav bar is that I'll just give some border for it, maybe 2 pixels solid red, like this. Now instead of giving the padding for it, right, so I've given some padding, right, I would like to make it as a margin because it's a free space around it. But it is the first children, so it will be relative to its parents. So what I could do is I'll go with padding only. So for the padding top I can give, and margin horizontal I can give. So margin horizontal 100 pixels, and then padding top, which is something like 20 pixels I could give. Now you see padding is applied, and then margin is also applied on the right side as well as the left side. Now for this button, the button looks like little heavy right here. What we can do is for the button, we can style the button with a specific dimensions, with specific basically some dimensions. Let's understand what happened here. So I'll inspect this. So this is the button, and this is the content area. On the left side we have, why it is having this much height is because the align items property is by default set to stretch in the navbar container. So the navbar container is there, no? So for this, it's a flex basically. So align items, let me just show you here. We can also see practically here by just checking on the badge. Now you see there is a right half which is a flex. So in this flex, when I click on this badge right now, you will be able to see that the slanted lines are something which is the empty space, and the other two elements actually have occupied the entire height, which means they are in the stretch mode. Stretching means basically they occupy the entire available height. So we can adjust it by using a property called align property. So align items, I'll just give it to something like center, so that stretch mode will be removed. Now it is not adjusted, right? But not for this one I supposed to give, because this is not the flex container that contains these two. I need to give for this particular one, which is the right half. So let us search for right half, where we have over here. Now I can just attach align items to be center for this. Now you see the buttons are aligned centered, right? And now for this button, what I could do is I can give some padding as how I need it. So for the BTN class, I can give some padding, vertical padding maybe 20 pixels, and horizontal padding to be 10 pixels. So 20 is little more, I'll just give 10. So 10 is also seems little more, I'll just give 8, and 8 seems little better for me, so I'll keep it, I'll go with it. And then the horizontal padding, I'll just make it to 15 pixels. Now you see we got the proper button that is actually there in the site. Correct? Any doubts till this point, you guys? Do you guys have any doubts till this point? Is this going to be good project to add in our resume? Of course yes, because it includes something, the core CSS. So basically you could tell to the interviewer that you have done some project on the CSS, because it consumes the core concepts in CSS. So you could add it as a front end project, definitely. Portfolio website, yeah, you can add it, but not like a project. Just add it as a portfolio only in the resume if you want. Okay. Now somehow we have made it, we are little lagged to make it, but from now on I'll go with little faster pace to make this. Now this is the next thing that we need to do. So before that I just need to change the font families. So for that I'll just search for Google fonts, and then I'm going to insert another link, and I'll just search for sans font, which is sans serif. Open sans, I can go with this open sans. What I could do is I can just get the link tag over here. I just need to attach this link tag to use that font family, because font family is something which makes your website much beautier, right? And after adding that, just make sure you add this particular font family in your file. So for the HTML entirely, I'm just going to attach this. So I'll keep both of them, let it apply whichever the one is available. Now you see the font family is much changed now, because we have changed the font family now. Now what we have to do is the second thing. Now we are done with the navbar. Let's move on to here. And now I'll close this navbar. Now this content thing we need to do. And in the content thing, let us see how many things we have. So this is one element which has a separate styling. So let me just have something like H1 and have this content over here. And then the next thing is another one, which is a byline text. So let me have it inside a paragraph like this. And another paragraph is also there. So let me have that paragraph also over here. And then one last thing, we have the input and then the button together. So I'm going to keep a div to hold both of them. And then inside that, I'm going to give an input, a placeholder to be email address, as they have mentioned. And then the second thing is a button, which is get started. So get started is the button, and this get started button also includes an icon. So let me just make that icon also material icons. And now I need to attach an icon. So let us just search for the icon, which is a right icon, right? So I would like to go with this chevron right. So I can give this one chevron right, chevron underscore right, right? So it is underscore only, correct? If I head back to here, now you see I got all the stuff, right? I know that it does not look much better. We can make it now. So what we need to make is now here we have this particular content, right? So this content we should have at the center of the container basically. So at the center of the container we need to have. So how can we make it is, let me just target this particular content first. So I'll have some comment over here saying that content header content styles, so that in future if you look at this notes you will understand it. Header content styles, and then inside this I'm just going to target the content, and for this I'll just give a border of 2 pixel solid red maybe, and you see we got the border. Now what I want is I wanted it to be little down, right? And then I wanted this entire thing to be at the center. So to make something at the center, we can just make its margin to be auto, basically horizontal margin to be auto, so that it would be aligned at the center. Now it is not aligned because it is already having 100% width. So let us just have a width of maybe 60% of the container. Now you see it has 60% and it is aligned at the center with equal margins on the left as well as on the right. And for the top margin, I would give something like 100 pixels of margin for the top. Now you see it has slided little down. So if you wanted to exactly calculate it, what we can do is to make it at the center, we can use a calc function to calculate it. So basically the height of the entire container is 80 vh. So inside 80 vh minus, let's assume the height of this particular navbar to be maybe 100 pixels, and I just need to, have this 80 pixels minus 100. 80 VH means starting from here till here, and then 100 pixels is the height of this particular nav bar. Okay, and the remaining height is 80 VH minus uh, the one which is 80 VH minus this one. But yeah, we can, instead of calculating and making it much complex, what we can do is I'll just assume some value because it is always going to be a 80 VH, right? I'll just keep something like 20 VH of top margin basically. Now it is got aligned properly at the center. Now we just need to style it. So to style it inside this content, I'll use some pseudo, I'll use some combinators to target the elements. So inside this content, whatever the H1 is there, and then whatever the inside the content again, whatever the paragraphs are there. So for all of them, I'll just give a margin top of maybe 20 pixels so that they'll have some gaps among themselves. Now you see we got some gaps. And one more thing is for the content, I can give text align property to be centered so that all the text will be at the center, right? And for the H1, what I wanted to do is I wanted to give a font size of little more, maybe 50 pixels I would like to give. Now you see it seems little bigger now. And then the font weight also I would like to give. Font weight is used to make the bold thing. So I'll just make it to bold. Now you see the text is in bold, correct? And similarly for the paragraphs also, I would like to adjust some more values. So I'll target paragraphs also inside this content. And then for this font size, I'll just give something like 24 pixels. And then font weight, I'll give something like maybe 600 value basically. Now you see these things are also in the bold little bit. For English box, there is a white line, but we have white blinking. Okay, yeah, correct, you're right. So there is a border for the English box, but we don't have the border over here, and then it seems little larger in height. But yeah, let's keep that height, that's fine, but we just need to add the border for it. So for that, let us just go to the language picker. So here it is. So instead of border none, right, 1 pixel solid, and let's get the color of this border. I'll use this. It is some gray color. Yeah, so this color we just need to attach. So now we will be having the border for our select box also. Now you can see the border is also visible for our box as well. So we could give something more value to make it much visible. And then coming back to here, the paragraphs, I wanted to increase the size and then font weight also. I've made it. So font weight also, I would like to make it to a little bolder. And one second, to have it something like a bigger one, what I can do is I can remove this two, also this two. Now you see the font is little heavy weighted. I mean the thickness is little more increased because with just sans serif without any other filters, I mean the pop-ins or any other fonts, we can just make the text to be little bolder, much bolder, just like this. Now coming to the bottom one, which is the email container. So I'll just have something like a email container class for it. Let me just have email container, and then let's target this email container now. Email container. And then for this, what I can do is I can give some border, basically something like 2 pixels solid red, just to show you guys where the element is actually. Now I can remove the border for this one so that you will not be able to see. Now you see, you're able to see this particular border, right? And for this, I will just give a width of 70% of its parent because I don't want it to occupy the entire width. Okay, or else I'll make it at the end why I'm reducing the width. Now what I will do is there are two things which are inline elements. So that is the inline block elements, the button and then input. That is why they are coming side by side. So I'm just going to make it to be something like a flex, the email containers, because I wanted to align its children's properly. So display flex I can make. Now you see they are in the row direction and then they are in the stretch mode. That is why they are occupying the 100% width, 100% height. And after that, what I could do is, let me target the input now inside email container. Whatever the input I have, which is the this input, let me just have a flex grow for it to be 1. Whenever we give flex grow, right, in that particular flex container, the available space will be taken by that proportion. So for this, the flex grow is I'm setting up 1, right, which means whatever the free space is there, one part of that free space will be taken by it. And the button will have a default flex scroll. For every flex children, the flex scroll will be 0, which means none of them occupy the extra space. So when I give one value, right, whatever the entire space is there, that will be occupied by this email only. So that is the reason why I'm giving flex scroll. And now you see email input is actually extended to the available space. Now let me also give a gap of maybe 20 pixels so that I'll have some gap, but I should give the gap for the parent, not for the children. For this parent, I could give the gap. Now you see, I have got a gap of 20 pixels, and let me reduce the container width. So container width, I'll just make it to something like 70% as I told you just now, so that it will have little lesser width. And then I wanted this item to be at the center. So the container which contains it, right? So the one who contains this container is something which is the content. So let's just target that. So here is our content, and then what I can do is I can make its display to be flex, and then flex direction to be column, so that every item will be in a column. And then whenever flex direction is column, right, we can align the items in the horizontal direction by using align items, because based on the direction, the align items and then justify content will swap each other. So justify content will always work about main axis, whereas align items will work about cross axis. So here the vertical axis would be a cross axis, and then horizontal axis would be a main axis when the flex direction is row. Now when the flex direction is column, right, the vertical axis will become the cross axis, the horizontal will become the main axis basically. So about this horizontal axis, if we wanted to align something, right, what we could do is flex direction is column, which means the main axis is the vertical axis now. So the cross axis is horizontal. Now I wanted to align the elements along the horizontal direction. So which means about the cross axis. So I should use align items to be centered so that they will be aligned at the center. Now you see this input and then the center thing has aligned at the center. And for this particular email container, I would also like to give a margin top of maybe 20 pixels, just like this. And for the input, I'll give a background color like whatever I've given, so which is RGBA, something like the second color, so that we'll be able to see the input, something like that. And now the next thing is to style the button. So for this, we can attach the button class. So the class name to be btn, so that we can use the existing styles that we attached to the sign in button. Now you see, like sign in button also, it also got some styling. And then I will also give another class called get started btn, so that it will have another class and I can style it accordingly. So get started button. And then for this, I'll make its display to be flex again, so that I can align this text and then this icon like wise. So, and then I wanted to make it at the center vertically, so I'll use align items. This time flex direction is row right, so align items is going to work about the vertical axis. So if I make it to center, they will be aligned properly vertically now. Okay. And now the next thing is the input. I need to style little more by removing the default border. So border, just make it to none, just like this. Now border is removed, so let me also remove this particular border which is red around it. And then this does not look much good because we need to add the border for it. So instead of none, I'll just make it to solid, and then whatever the border we have given for the sign in, so which is this color, I copy this color, and then for the input also just keep the same color, right? And then let's also have some padding, horizontal maybe. So padding horizontal, vertical I want 0, horizontal maybe 10 pixels padding I want. Now you see I got some padding. And then let me make the border radius also a little bit. So border radius to be something like 5 pixels. Now you see the email is styled much better, right? Now this is it about this particular header section. I'm not going to make much on it because we have some things more to discuss. It does not look much better, right, like as it is looking over here, because we need to increase the opacity a little more. So let us just try to adjust it. So for the container, the background color, instead of having this, right, I'll just make it to 0.7 maybe. Now you see it looks little better now. 0.9 would make it to complete dark. 0.8 is also kind of making it to complete dark. So I'll go with 0.7, which makes little better. So they could have used some other properties also, something like a filter property on top of the images. And I'm not sure that whether they have added it as a background image or not. But yeah, to make this kind of things, right, we have to go with this way only. Now we have done some good looking button and then image, so button and then input. But you see the dimensions of this button and then image are not as per how we had there. So the width of this is not that much, so let us reduce the width of it. Instead of 70%, I'll just reduce it to 60% or 50%. So here we have, I'll just make it to 60%. Now it looks a little better. And then we can also have some vertical paddings for it. So let me just attach some font size to be little larger. So font size 24 pixels for the button first. You see font is little bigger in size now. And now the icon also, which is inside this. So for that span also, so I just need to increase the font size inside the span, which is the icon. For this also the font size to be 24 pixels, and I'll make it important so that this icon will also have that particular font size. So we have this icon inside the button only. I've targeted that button only. Is it increased or not? Let me just make it to 30 pixels. Yes, 30 pixels looks better for it. We can keep it. Now we'll have it 70% only because input size got reduced because I increased the font size of this particular button. Okay, it looks a little better. We can have some buffer time at the end and then to clear out some more things. Now coming to this thing, right? So everywhere on the web page, if you see, we have everything in the dark color, right? So let's just have the background color for the HTML to be black, so that everywhere on our web page we are going to have the dark color. Now what we are going to do is the next thing should be something like this section. So let's make that section. So to make that section, I will collapse this particular header now, and then I'll have another section here. And then inside this section, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have two elements. One is the left element, so left item, and another one is the right item, which is the image actually. Or let me make a div and then give a class name to be right item. So two things I have given. Left item stands for this one, and then right item stands for the video and then the image, everything. So in the left item again, I have one h1, and then I'm going to have this particular text inside, and then again I'm going to have a paragraph. Let me just have a paragraph and then I'll paste it just like this, right? And then on the right side, I just need to have an image with a src to be frame1, and then I just need to have a uh, video tag, and inside the video tag we are going to specify the video that we are actually going to play inside it. So by using the source tag we can specify, so source will have the src attribute, and then we'll just specify video1 value over here. Now we'll have a video as well as an image on the right side. So if I open this, right, it looks much clumsy, not as per the design, which is very clumsy looking. So let's style it now. So right item is there and then left item is there in the section. So let me just have body item or body section, basically the class name. And now I'll make another section of CSS here like this. And then here I'm going to target this particular items. I mean all these items which is using by the body section. So you'll be able to see this if when I apply some border for it. So border to pixel solid red, maybe body sections. It is not section just. Now you see you are able to see the border, right, for it. Now what I'm going to do is the right item, whatever is there, I'll also target that. The solid blue where the image and then video we have, and the left item also I'll just target for you because we are going to work all together at a time with some border, maybe something like 2 pixel solid orange. If I head back, you see two items are there. I want these two items side by side. So in the body section, what I'm going to do is I'll make its display to be flex so that the flex direction would become row. So they'll be in a row. And then I wanted to make something like align items to be center like this. Now if we head back to here, now you see this item within this container is centered and this two items within this container is also centered. You can see basically the image, the problem with this image is that if you see the image is not this white area that you are thinking of, there is some black area is also there, which is actually 80 pixels is there. This height and then this left values, that is 80 pixels almost. So I evaluated previously. So the problem is with the image. Now here you try to understand carefully. So this is little tricky in the entire making of this web page, where I need to keep the video inside that particular frame. So frame is something which is this image, and inside that image we need to keep the video, which means we have to position this video inside that particular image. So to do that, I'll target this right item first. Okay, right item type first, which is the blue color bordered one. So this one, and in the right item, whatever the video is there. So right item, whatever the video is there, video tag, I'll just make it position to be absolute so that I can position it with respect to the right item. So position of the right item needs to be non-static because I wanted to position the video relative to this one. So I have to give some non-static value. So I'm going with relative value over here. Now if I save here and then come back to here, now we are not able to see the video, right? Where the video has gone. The video has come over here. So let us position this video on top of this particular frame. So to do that, I'll just specify left value to be 0 so that it will come to the left, and then I'll specify the top of also 0, as by default the top is 0. Now this video I need to put it at the inside the frame, so I'll give the top to be something like 80%, sorry, 80 pixels, right? Sorry, left I have given 80 pixels, so let me also give top to be 80 pixels. Now you see the video is almost aligned, but it is not exactly aligned. So what I could do is I'll give a left of maybe 10%. Does not work. 15% of its width, it also does not work. So left is okay, it's okay to go for 80 pixels, because it is for the left side, from this left line of this blue color one, it has been moved towards right by 80 pixels, but from the top we have to move it little down. So to move it that right, so let me just give some trial with some values, maybe 20% I'll give. Now you see it somehow got synced into this. So basically it's the adjustment of values, because the image creator is not me. I don't know what are the exact dimensions of that image. If I was the one designed it or something, then if I had the Figma, then definitely I could have figured out the dimensions. But since we don't have, we have to do this way only. Okay. Now the next thing is that the remote is gone behind and the frame is entirely gone behind, right? But if you look at the scenario here, the remote is on top of the video and the frame is clearly visible to the user. So to do that, what we need to do is the Z index, which is the one decides the Z value, basically how close the element towards you or how far the elements towards you. So it will by default have a Z index of 0 every element. Now we are just going to make it to -1 so that it will get behind basically. Now you see the frame is on top of it, and now currently we got the remote also on top of it. Now we can happily remove this particular borders, these two borders, which we don't require anymore. Right? Now we have aligned it. Now the video is not playing, right? The video is not playing now. So to play the video, what we need to do? We have to attach the Boolean attribute, which are something like controls, if you wanted to enable controls, but I don't want to enable the controls. So I'll just specify it to be muted so that the video will be in muted state. And then I wanted it to continuously play the video. So after completion of each time, it should be in a loop. So that's why it is in a loop. And then autoplay I wanted to enable so that it will be playing automatically. Now you see the video started playing, and we are able to see it. Now the next thing is that I wanted to give some padding on the horizontal sides for the body section. So something like this, padding for the horizontal, vertical though I wanted to keep it 0 as it is. And for horizontal, I'll just keep 100 pixels so that there would be 100 pixel padding on the right side and then 100 pixel padding on the left side as well. Now for the left item, so inside the left item, I would like to target H1 and then only H1. And for this H1, I'm gonna give a font size to be something like 50 pixels. It should be very huge, just like this. And then we're gonna have a margin bottom for it, maybe 20 pixels. Now you see these two texts are separated. And the paragraph font size also I wanted to increase inside the left item. So left item, the paragraph, I'll just keep the font size to be something like 20 pixels or 24 pixels, just like this, so that the paragraph will also have little bigger font size, just like this. Right? Now we have made this section. If we wanted to, here it seems like the dimensions are little lesser, so we can adjust that also. But I'm not going to adjust now, but we can adjust it because we know how to position it now. Now this particular border I need to give above for it. So for this, what I could do is, let us see wherever we are having this border. So for below the header we have, and below this section we have, and then below this section, below this section, below every section we have the borders, right? So what we can do is globally we can apply it at one place for all of this. Something like for the top header and then the body section. For all of this, I'm going to give a border bottom of maybe 5 pixels solid, this gray color value, so that we'll get that particular border. Now you see we got this particular border below the first one and then below the second one also. Okay. Now let's try to make the next section, which is again a kind of same thing, where we have this image. Now to make this image and then this one, so let's have that section, which is again going to be another body section. So let me have another section with a class of body section, and then inside this again I'm going to have this time an image first, right? Firstly I'll give something like image container, and inside this I'm going to have an image with src node to be frame 2, basically frame 2. And then on the right side, so I should make it to something like left half, right? And then in the right half I'll give another class called right half, and in the right half I'm going to give the text, basically, which is again h1 and then this one, so that I don't need to repeat the styling again. So in the h1 I'm going to have this text, and in the paragraph I'm going to have this text, right? And if I head back to here, now you'll be able to see the left half and then the right half. So why it is not shown like this? What are the classes we are? Right item, okay, it's not half of item, so we just need to make it to item at 2 places. Now we should get the images here. Why we haven't got this image? Let us see what this image looks like. There is no image here, right? The image which I have given is wrong. So let me just have something like frame 2. It is a JPEG image, so that is why it was not visible. Now if I scroll down, you see we got this image and then we got this particular thing also over here. Now what I can do is, why the h1 and then this one is not aligned? Let's see. So it is just because whatever the styling we have applied for this h1 and then paragraph at the bottommost, for the right item also we apply. So for the right item paragraph, and then similarly for the right item h1. So these two things will get the same styling, like image on the left side and then this thing on the right side. Okay. And the next thing is coming to, we have to have one card on top of it. So it's like there is an icon change is there. So this thing we have to specify with JavaScript only, because it has some timer there, and then the icon is kind of changing continuously. So this effect we can attach by using JavaScript. So basically we need to have a set timeout inside, and then upon changing of time we can change this icon dynamically. So but we can have this design. So to have this design, let's just copy this image. I'll give the image to be small, and then yeah, let's have this on top of this or below this div, and I'll give layout as a class for it, and then image something like small I'll give, right? And then after image I just need to have this danger things. So let me have something like a paragraph which is danger things, and then downloading. So I just need to have another thing which is span, and then it should specify downloading over here, right? With some 3 dots as well. And this item I'm not going to attach because that could be done by dynamically only. So the image should be there on the left side, and then these two things needs to be there on the right side, basically. So let's have the layout class over here. And then for this layout, what I'll give is I'll just give the border first, because you have to see the item. If I head back to where is my site? Yeah. So you see, this is the layout. I just need to position it with respect to this container. So the container which contains this is the left item, right? So I'll give another class which is not to disturb, static left item. So this class I'll target now, because I don't want to affect the original one. And then for this I'll give a border. And if I head back now, this is the container which contains it. So I can just make its position to be absolute, and then the position of blue item to be relative, and then I can position this one relative to the on top of this particular image. So to do that, firstly, position to be non-static for it, relative, And then the layouts position needs to be something like absolute, because I wanted to position it with respect to its parent. And bottom for this, I wanted to give something like 0, so that it will be at a distance of 0 from the bottom, right? And then the right for it should be something like 0, so that it would be occupying the entire width. Let me also give the left for it to be 0, so that it would occupy the entire width, just like this. Now I can have this like a flex. So let me just make its display to be flex. When I make its display to be flex, there is an image, and then we have a paragraph, right? So the image paragraph will come in a row. Currently, these two are coming one on top of the other, because paragraph is a block level element. When I make this red container to be a flex, right? Flex direction would be row, so they'll be in a row, one after the other in a single line. So flex I made, now you see they came side by side. And the image inside this layout, I'll just style it. So layout, whatever the image is there, I'll just give a width of maybe 40 pixels, which would be much smaller, right? So I can give something more also. I'll give 50 pixels. So if I give 50 pixel, I think this would be better. And then I need to align it at the center. So justify content center. So they'll come at the center now. And then align items to be at the center. They'll come vertical also center, you see. And then the paragraph, whatever is there. So I just need to, inside the layout, whatever the paragraph is there, its font size, I'll just need to have something like 20 pixels only, much smaller. And then inside this paragraph, whatever the span is there, the color of it needs to be something like blue. You will see it is in blue. And then this paragraph, I'll just make its display to be flex, because I wanted the text as well as this one to be one on top of the other. So the paragraph, whatever is there over here, the danger things also, I'll keep it inside another item, which is span. Right, so basically two elements I have. So when I make it to flex, right, they'll be one after one by one in a single line. So I'll just make it to flex direction to be column, so that they'll come one above the other, just like this. And so span I selected, right? I should use some other name. Maybe I could use bold, because it looks in bolder text. And then for the image and then the right half, I just need to have some gap between them. So I can have a gap of 20 pixels over here. Now you see we got some gap over here. And now I can remove this particular border, and I can specify some width for it. It may be something like 400 pixels, but I need to see it, right? So let me just keep 400 pixels is something this, and margin needs to be set as auto. So I need to position it on top of this. So I could give some left value, but it is really heavy to give all the offsets and manage everything with the offsets. It's not a good idea though. So what we can do is, we need to have it at the leftmost. So this thing is actually the left container, left item basically. So for doing it, this particular item, so to change the icons, what you can do is, Shika Tripathi, you just need to go to the Google's fonts, Google's icons, the site. If you are using Google icons, you just search for the targeted icon. Just click on that icon. Let's say if you wanted to use the home icon, you just extract this text home and then keep it inside the span tag, which has a class name to be material icons. That's all. Okay. Now I wanted to position it over here on top of it. So I'll just keep something like, this right half is there, left half is there. So I could give for this maybe something like a left 0, right? I've given. So let me remove that. And right also, let me remove that. Left. Now margin, if I give auto, it is positioned absolute, so it won't work. So, and this width also, why do I need this width? I don't need it. Position absolutely needs to be there. Bottom 0 needs to be there. Now I wanted a left value, maybe something like 20% of its parent I'll give, or maybe I'll give 40%. 40% is little huge. 30 would be, I think, better. And then the width, I'll just make it to something like 50%. It's better to go for relative width always when you're making a web page, because that's where you make it something related to other one, right? So it looks a little better. So 25 I will give, right? And then width also I'll increase it to 50%. Right now I think this is almost in sync with this. And now what we can do is we can just remove this border of 2 pixel solid red, and instead we can have solid hash and this one, and then we can have a border radius also for it. Color which is needs to be dark. Background color need to be pure black, so it will be on top of it. Let's just come to here. Now you see we have this one to be dark background which is hovered on top of the image basically. Now what we can do is, let us remove the border which is blue color border, which we don't require anymore because we are done with that task. Now let's move down further, and we need to make something more. So after this, so for everything, if you see, there is a padding, right? But this does not have a bottom padding. Let's add the bottom padding for it. To add the bottom padding for it, what I can do is, for the static left item, no, for the body section only we have to give the bottom padding. But body section, if we give, it will eventually affect the other one. So let's just keep the body section only padding, vertical padding. Maybe something like 20 pixels would be a little better. Now you see we got some vertical padding for it. I'll give something like 40. I wanted to increase a little more. You see we got some vertical padding for this two sections, right? And now let's move further. We have to make this thing. So again the same scenario I'm going to repeat. It is just that the copy paste. So you see how efficiently I have written the code so that I can reuse these things again and again. Now here I just need to change this text, nothing more. So this one needs to be something like frame 3 basically, right? And then this video one needs to be video 2 basically, and then the text I need to edit. Text I have edited, and then this one also. Edit, and if I head back to here, now we'll be able to see the other thing also. But if you look, the video is not aligned properly, because for this thing we need to make it aligned little perfectly, because it's not something is aligned with respect to the dimension that it has. So what I need to do is, for this video I need to specify some height, and then the top offset and the left offset are actually not adjusted properly. So for this one I'll give a width of maybe 200, and this width is very small. Let me make it to 400. So after making 400, the top I need to reduce, and then the left also I need to increase a little bit. So the top I'll just have the inline styling because I wanted to verify. So the top I'll just keep 0. So it moved to there. Let me just keep 20 pixels. It moves little down. So finally I can confirm that 30 pixels would sync in with this. And then left also similarly I can just make it to something like 20 pixels. So it does not work. Let me just keep in percentages, because we have given in percentages only. So 10% does not work. So 20% would definitely work. Yes. 20% is working on it. And yeah, this is one thing which we have almost used the same styling, and then I just used some extra inline styling to align this particular video inside the frame that it has. And now the next thing is coming down further. One last thing, which is this image. So let's also have this one. So again I'm going to have the same thing where we have image on the left side, and then I'll copy and then paste it here. And then this time the image should be frame 4, I guess. Yeah, screen 4. And then I don't need to have this one, the layout anymore here. And then the right thing, which is I'll just copy this and then paste it over here. Then this entire thing I'll copy, and then here also I'll paste this. Now if we head back to here, now I'll get another one which includes this. So you see, for all of these we have made a generic styling, and then we just applied the same styling everywhere so that it is got applied everywhere, right? Now if I scroll further down, now coming to here, we have some other section where FAQ section is there. So let's just have that section also. Let's just create another section with a class of FAQ container. And inside that, I'll just have a div with a name of FAQ, right? And then in this FAQ, each time I need to have two things. So one is the question basically. So let me just have two items. One is the question, and the question is what is Netflix, like this. So this is the question, and the second thing is a icon. So span with a class of material icons, and then the value of it needs to be add basically. So add, I remember that it is going to give us this particular icon. So that is the reason why I have added. You see, we got the icon and then we got the question also. And then one more thing is above this, we should have one H1, which will be the FAQs, basically the text. Let's copy this and then paste this as well. Right? And it is enough if we style one FAQ. I mean, one container if we style, right? Then we can just reuse the same container again and again. So let us just write it again. Here in the FAQs container, so I'll just have a padding of 40 pixels vertically and then 100 pixels horizontally. Now let's head back to here. So if you see, we got the same padding, and then inside this, whatever the H1 we had, for this font size, I'll just make it to something like 50 pixels. Now you see it is a little bigger. And then FAQ container, I'm just going to make it to display flex. I'll tell you why. And I'll have some duplicated questions a couple of times so that you'll be able to see all the questions. So all the questions comes like this because we have made it to display flex. And flex direction, we just need to make it to column so that they'll come one after the other, right? And then for a flex, for a FAQ class, I'll just give some border, maybe 2 pixels solid red. So it is for an individual question. You see, I got the individual questions, and I wanted to align these all items at the center horizontally. So justify content center. So items all should be at acha. The direction is column, right? So justify content is not something which works about horizontally. So align items to be center so that it will work about the horizontal. Now you see it works about the horizontal, right? And now these are all the items now in no more in the stretch mode. So what I could do is this particular one, for every FAQ, what I can do is I can make it display flex so that two elements, which is the question as well as the icon, will come side by side. So justify content space between I can give just like this. And I wanted these widths to be grown basically. So if you just inspect this mode, this particular layout model, and then see, so this is actually a flex, right? So that section which is frequently asked is a flex. Now, as soon as I made it to be a made it to be at the center, right? These all the things are at the center now, and these things are aligned at the center. So for all the FAQs, what I can have is align self. Matlab individually I'm aligning them at the center. So horizontal I need to make them to have the full width. Sorry. So the direction of this is column, right? So the question H1 and then all these cards are vertically column. I mean, in a single column they are there. So if I wanted to horizontally increment it, which means align items I need to use, correct? So align self is to be stretch. If I give, now you see all the items are in stretch because I've specified them to align stretch. And then for all of these items, I'll just give a padding of 20 pixels in all around 4 directions. They will be a little bigger now. right? Now let's remove this. And for this H1, let me have margin bottom of maybe something like 20 pixels. And for all this particular FAQ container, I'll have a gap of 10 pixels again, so that there will be a gap between the questions, right? And then the background color of each question needs to be something like this. So let's have that color. So this color we need to have, right? So we have the same color, and then let me remove this particular border. Now you see we got the same kind of cards. Let me just also add some border radius, maybe 10 pixels in all around, so that there will be little curvature. 4 pixel would be pretty much enough. Now you see we got the cards, and for all of these FAQs we should have the hover effect. So upon hovering, we just need to change the background color to be something like some other color maybe. I'm not sure with that color, and you see just like this, and you see the background color is kind of immediately changing, right? To change it after certain time, I mean with some duration, we can just attach the transition duration, and then the duration may be 0.5 seconds. If I give, it will take little amount of time to change that background color. Now you see it is little smooth to hover on it, right? And then the text whichever is there inside this FAQ. So FAQ, whatever the question we have, I think that is being with H1 only, sorry, paragraph, sorry. So for this paragraph, we'll have little bigger font size, maybe 24 pixels, right? So you see we got the questions to be like this. And now I'll just change these questions. I'm unable to select this. And also we need to increase the font size of, I mean the icon size also. So let's just also make it for the icon. So FAQ, inside FAQ, whatever the span is there. So for that span also, I'll change this particular font size. Right, so that now you see this is also in little bigger font size now. So, sorry, it is the official site. So in our site, it is not that bigger, right? FAQ span only. I think we could keep 40 pixels. So you see 40 pixels is little better, I guess. Or maybe 35 I'll go with finally. Yeah, this would be little better now. So we have got 4 FAQs, and then one last thing we need to build is this thing, which is again a paragraph. So let me just have that paragraph over here. And then this thing I can just reuse from the top, which is the email container. So let me just search for email container. So I'll just copy this and then paste it over here because it's a reusable thing. And then if I come back to here now again, so you'll be able to see this particular text and then this particular thing also. Okay. And instead of having this particular paragraph over here, we could this one for the email container, we have email container looks fine for me, but this paragraph we just need to style it. So for this paragraph, inside the FAQ container, we have a paragraph, and then for this font size needs to be something like 30 pixels, like this. Now it will be a little more, and then the margin top, margin vertical maybe something like 20 pixels, horizontal maybe 0 pixels. I will have some gap between these two, right? So eventually we have also made the bottommost thing, and one last thing left is the footer. So let's also make the footer one last thing, and I'll collapse all this. So for making footer, I'll just use the semantic tag footer, and then inside that I'm going to have something like 1 2 3 3 items, right? And one paragraph at the top. So let me have the paragraph at the top first, which is going to have this particular text. And then I'm going to have three divs, which is kind of, I'll make one div with a class name to be links container. And then I'm going to have 3 divs inside with a class of links item. And then for this, I'm going to have 2 classes, one is called tags, so anchor tags with ID, I mean with a link to be nothing. So FAQ, media center, ways to watch. So FAQ and then media center and then ways to watch something else. And then the select box also. So let's have that one. I'll just copy this again from the top. Inside the nav bar we had it. So which is this particular select, and the icons are also there. So I'll just copy this entirely and then paste it at the bottom as well. So here, yeah, just like this. And if I head back to here now, you see I got all these things. Let me have two more links. I'm not going to write many links, so I'll just duplicate it for a couple of times again, right? And this is one section, one links item. So the same links item I'll be having for a couple of times, maybe two more times, because we have three columns eventually. And in the other columns, I'm not going to have these many links, and also the input select box basically. So let's remove this. If I head back, you see I got three things. Now what we can do is this footer, I'll give a class of footer container, and let's target the footer, and I'll style it here saying that footer styles, and then inside I'm just going to target it with a class of footer. And then for this footer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a padding of something of 100 pixels in all the four directions. I would get some padding. It should be footer container class, sorry. Right now you see I got some padding in all the four directions. Now the next thing is that I need to have these things in a separate color. So for footer, I'm just going to make the color of the text to be something like this for all the text with a hash at the front, right? And now what I'm going to do is for this footer container, um, I have another container inside, which is the links container, right? So let us target links container first. Some solid border red. Now you will be able to see the links container. And for this links container, I'll just keep some margin maybe, or let's do it later. And then I'm going to make these three things the links item basically. Links item also I'll give a border just like this. So blue borders I got. And then what I'm going to do next is I just need to make it as a flex links container, so display to be flex, so that all of these will be in a flex direction. And then I'll give a gap of 20 pixels for all of this, right? So we'll get a gap between the items just like this. And then the links item also, which is the actual one containing all the list of links. So this one also I'm going to make it display to be flex, and they are in a row currently. So flex direction to be column, right? If I give column, they'll be in a column. In the blue container, if you see, they are in a column. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a gap of 20 pixels between the all the links. Now you see all the links got some gaps between them. And then I would like to justify content. I would like to give it something like space evenly, so that they would be evenly separated. Not for this, but for the container which contains all the links items. So for this one, right now you see they are evenly occupied. And yeah, the next thing would be we just need to change all the anchor tags colors. So in the footer container, whatever the anchor tags are there, all of them we are going to make the same thing. Achha, this padding is also applied. Okay. Now for the footer container exclusively, we'll keep a padding of maybe 100 pixels, right? This looks better. I'll just remove the borders now, like this. And then these links container whatever is there, I would like to give a padding for it, maybe padding vertical of 40 pixels and then a horizontal of 0. Now you see we got some padding, and I could give space between so that the left one will move to the leftmost as it is there in the design over here, right? And these three are not moving from leftmost to the rightmost, they are kind of in a flex start. So I could give, instead of this, to be flex start also. Let me show you. So they'll come on the leftmost only. We can just adjust the gaps between them with some gap value. Instead of having a gap of 20, we could have 100 gap or something like, 200 gap, so that we'll have some huge gap between them, right? And then one last thing, which is for this footer container also, we should have a border bottom, basically border top, but we should get the border bottom. Acha, FAQs container, whatever is there, for this we just need to attach it at the top, where the border bottom we have attached. So for this also, now we'll get a border below this also. And then this is the last footer we had. Even my laptop charging is also done. Meanwhile, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions, right, please do raise them, and you will be given some form right now. I think it has been already delivered to you. So those who wanted to get some idea about AccioJob and then wanted to join, definitely you can just go through that link and then register yourself there. And meanwhile, I would like to take up some questions if you have any from now onwards. Text decoration none. Why I've not done is because if you see, the anchor tags actually do have this particular underlines basically. So I'm not going to make the text decoration none. I want the text decoration to be underlined as it is. How to achieve FAQ dropdown by GS? So basically what you can do is, you whatever the opened element is there, if you know the JavaScript, what I'll tell you. So whenever you add a click event for this plus icon, and whenever you click it, you open you make the display value dynamically from none to block for the one which opens up. So whatever opens up, right, this value, you have a display to be none by default initially, and then you have the display to be blocked for it so that it will get popped out. And then when you click on it again on it, it's kind of just toggle the value from block to none and then none to block. That is how you can actually make this accordions. Okay. How to get job in this area? So basically it's the hard work that you put every day, and then work on, let's say if you wanted to become a front end developer, you should be very good at all these technologies, especially in the JavaScript area. So head through all of them, learn all of them. When you are having good enough skills, right, it's easy to get the job in the market. The only thing, depends on how skilled you are, right? So the more the skills you have, the more the opportunities that you could get outside. We can also use bootstrap for the same. Of course we can use, but with bootstrap you cannot make this particular video inside the frame where we need to customize the CSS ourselves. There are many places where we have customized most of the stuff, right? So bootstrap, you can also make it with bootstrap as well, but yeah, with CSS making it would increase your skills more on the CSS perspective. Accordion, yeah, accordion, you can make it with bootstrap, but you don't know that internally bootstrap uses JavaScript to do that. Bootstrap is a library, it's not exclusively CSS library, it also includes jQuery and then JavaScript also. So bootstrap is a mixture of JavaScript and then CSS, so they have written some piece of JavaScript code to handle the accordions there. Any other questions for you? Can you please share me the code? Definitely. I will just push this code onto, just fill your form, and then I'll just give the report to the team so that the team will share it with you. Yeah. What kind of projects can we create to make ourselves job ready? Mm, it depends on what technologies you wanted to enter into. Let's say if you wanted to become a front end developer, I would suggest you to learn React or Angular, any one of the trending frameworks on the front end. until then, because if you wanted to learn them also, you have to have good amount of knowledge in the JavaScript area. So when you are good at all the front end technologies, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or one of the React or library or Vue, then you could make some meaningful front end project. Okay, it is just a UI clone, right? So whatever I've done today is just a UI. It does not include any functionality. You see, if I click on anywhere, it does not work actually, because it is just something in the CSS. Will Not a problem, Buddhinath. It's fine. Any other questions, guys, for you? Actually, one thing I wanted to tell you, I was little rushing because this is little complicated, right? The site, whatever you have seen, it is little complicated, and the time that I have is 2 hours, because it's just a master class. We are not going to have it for hours together, maybe 10 hours, 12 hours. So definitely, I should need to rush. And at some most of the places, I try to explain the things at my best, but eventually it's a kind of wrapped project which utilizes almost all the CSS stuff. No, Shivam, actually, you should not remember JS code. You have to understand JavaScript. You don't need to remember anything. It is just that you need to understand the flow, and you need to, practice on it to get it. So here I would share my GitHub as well as LinkedIn profile. So if you guys wanted to connect with me, I'm happy to connect with you. So just also you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Let me share my profile as well. So I'm sharing my GitHub profile here in the chat. Did you guys receive the chat? Or else let me just put it in the comments itself. Yeah, I've shared it in the comments also. You can go through that. So if you have no questions, then we can close this session up, right? LinkedIn also. LinkedIn, you can search for my name, you will get it up. You can search for Samudra Arvind, you will get it. Because I'm watching this comments in another thing, and in app we don't have a chance. I mean, it has been removed to copy the LinkedIn you know URL. So that's the reason why I'm not sharing here. But it's not like that. Basically, it depends on which area you are living in. So even it happens in the case of India also. If you work on in Hyderabad and then Bangalore, there would be a huge difference between these two places also. So you're only you're only assuming at one area, but you have to also take care of other things like the consumption and every other thing. So it's not like what you think. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Chalo, ठीक है. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm closing the session now. Thank you. Bye.